So it sounds like we're all over the place, which is fantastic, all the way from Newaygo and Ottawa and Kent counties, all over the place. So that's great. So my name is Gerry Verwey. I am currently, my new role here at Kent ISD is as a career readiness and STEM consultant. However, I've been a teacher for the last 16 years, the last 5 of which have been here on campus at Kent Innovation High as a physics facilitator. But I taught in an integrated physics algebra 2 classroom. And my first co-teacher at KH was somebody tall and bald named Rusty Anderson. And then he left to take some gig here at the ESC building. And then my next co-facilitator was Marcus DJ, who then left me to come here too. So I decided to follow them over here. So I have a history with Marcus and Rusty. Whether that's good or bad is up to them. But that's partly why they asked me to come in today. So my path has been kind of winding. I think a lot of you probably have some winding paths in your history too, but I started out teaching middle school and then worked my way up to high school. I taught alternative ed, I taught adult ed. It was a crazy path. It eventually led me to Creative Technologies Academy and then to Kent ISD. So there's a lot of history there. I also coach cross country and track because I didn't have enough to do in my life. So there's all kinds of things going on there, but so I'm excited that some of you are here today to kind of help me join in this presentation here. So hopefully you have access to the Google Classroom. The presentation is in there, but our purpose today is to create a collaborative learning environment to improve student inclusion and engagement, in addition to establishing a safe environment to grow from mistakes and successes. So this is what Marcus and Rusty valued from our experiences together in the classroom that they asked me to come work with you guys on. And so I came this morning because they're like, oh yeah, what we're doing in the morning will be very similar to what you're doing in the afternoon. And so I came this morning to kind of see what it was like, and it's wonderful. It really set the plate for where I hope we will go as a group this year in this breakout session. So in my mind, I think we'll just take a little bit deeper dive into some of the ideas we talked about this morning, but start looking at how those might play out in a classroom environment a little bit more. So I'll share some of my experiences. I'm sure many of you can share your experiences as well. And the idea is that we kind of grow together through this. So I don't want this to be just you and me. I want it to be kind of us together as we move forward. So that's our why. Fantastic, thank you.
You said restart first step. So
I did that too.
I was like, most people know it.
Yeah. Have you tried kicking it?
No.
That's usually my next step after that. So, what I want to do, I want to actually break from my agenda for a second and ask you to kind of reflect internally a little bit as to why you're in this room right now. So, I saw the options that you had for breakout sessions, and they are fantastic. And I know some of the people who are doing some of their breakout sessions, and there's some amazing sessions that I would like to be at right now just to learn from them. But for some reason, you chose to come here. And I appreciate that. But I want you to think about, why did you choose to be here right now? You don't have to answer. I just want you to think about that. We'll come back to that in a few minutes. So we're going to focus on an inclusion activity next. And our focus question is, what is one assumption that maybe you have about the topic? So our topic is establishing a collaborative classroom environment. So I'm sure we all walk in the door with at least one assumption about that topic. So our protocol is to take 2 minutes to individually and silently jot down thoughts about that focus question. When I prompt you after that, you'll find an eye contact partner, identify yourselves as A and B, similar process to what we went through this morning. And partner A will share their thoughts. Partner B, I'd like you to practice paraphrasing back to partner A. And then you'll switch roles, with partner B leading and partner A paraphrasing back. Any questions about that? I will start the 2-minute clock right here in a count of 5, 4, 3, 2, C. Go. Got your attention, didn't I?
I'm just using my hand.
Okay, well, Griffin's here if you want to try to.
Griffin?
He's right behind you.
My
He's
goodness,
an amazing
Gerry.
person. I can speak very highly of him.
Okay, I certainly
He
not.
promises not to roll his eyes at you or anything like that.
Okay.
About one more minute. Okay, that is our time. You will now find an eye contact partner and identify yourselves as A and B. Person A will first share their assumptions. Person B will then paraphrase.
I did try. Okay. So I think it goes that way.
You guys haven't signed in yet, have you?
Well, I did not sign you.
Start on the back side there. I think it goes that way when you're done with it, too.
Thank you for paraphrasing.
One assumption that I had about it was that students need to feel safe. So I'm assuming there's going to be strategies for like that. And then once it doesn't say
I love the work.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good. It's a little warm in here, but it's good. That could be my nerves, though.
I think you're right. Cool, thanks.
Okay, this is not just me. So I shouldn't feel self-conscious about it. If you have not switched roles, make sure you do so, please, at this time. I think it might go this way when you're done with that after your guys' table's done. Not super positive, but something like that.
Like that was always kind of the attitude. Like they would give like something really good. Like tell me
So I feel like you're feeling justified that it definitely wasn't you now. Yeah.
That's what I said. I told him I said I'm smarter than the other.
I heard you say that.
Yeah.
Something just doesn't agree with it. All right, we're going to come together in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I promise I can count. I was wondering if I could get 2 volunteers to share what maybe their assumption might be. 1. Can I get a second volunteer? Thank you. 2.
I'm actually going to share my partner's assumption.
Haha.
His assumption was that working in small teams was the best way to teach students new material.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
My assumption was that creating the collaborative environment takes a lot of intentionality to put that away.
Sure. Fantastic. Is there anybody else who's just dying to share their assumption that would like to share? So try to practice my wait time there. But, okay, cool. So we're going to have some time together to talk about some ideas around this, and some of those assumptions are going to come up. But we have a lot of time to do that this year through the course of these 5 sessions that we meet. And kind of in that sense of trying to establish this environment in here, this is kind of our classroom. I will help facilitate the conversation, but I do not want to be leading the conversation. But I want to take a moment to kind of set the stage for what this might look like in here. I have an idea, but I don't want it to be my idea. So I want to take another moment to kind of silently reflect. And I know after lunch it's very tempting to want to sleep when I silently reflect. So hang in there. But I want you to think about what would it look like. So this is our classroom. We'll have you assume the role of the students and I'll facilitate. What would it look like if this was the ideal classroom environment? What would it sound like if this was the ideal classroom environment? So again, this is our classroom. You will assume the role of a student. I will assume the role of facilitator for now. If you were to close your eyes and imagine an ideal classroom environment, what would you see? What would you hear? Maybe both from my side and your side. Let's take 2 minutes to jot down those thoughts on that blue piece of paper, please. At your table, which is in the middle behind your popcorn bucket. So just individually make a bullet list of what would you see and hear in that ideal classroom environment. Yeah, both lenses. So what would you see and hear from the facilitator?
Okay.
So just make sure there's clarification. If you were sort of an outside observer looking down on our classroom, what would you see and hear from the students? What would you see and hear from the facilitator if this was an ideal classroom environment? take another 27 seconds or so to finish up your thoughts. That seems like that's probably about 27-ish seconds, so we'll start from there. What I'd like you to do next is at your table group is to have an opportunity for each of you to share how you personally envision the ideal classroom environment. So I'll ask for each of you to share what you kind of jotted down, both from the lens of what you'd see and hear the teacher doing or the facilitator, and what you would see and hear the students doing. Once everyone has had an opportunity to share, we will take that another step, but I will pause right there and give you that moment to share your thoughts. Go.
So what that would look like is kids, and they're so involved in it, and it's literally they're over engaged. Like that's what I see. You know, when I see material. Of course, that I think that's the contact.
Something actively worked on that, constructed analysis, grading, summarizing
For students, I said student interaction, communication, and then hospitality,
Teacher listening, observing, teacher asking what your
When you're having these discussions, they're building on each other's something like at the start of figure out finish a problem instead of trying to get going, oh, that's wrong. Yeah, going, okay, so you. There's a lot of like kids will probably say you should hear just
assessing student learning throughout the activity, guiding,
sharing knowledge,
they would summarize student learning, they would the exemplary group always going first, and then 100% credit full time, actually pay the figures, show them how to make decisions, emphasize the growth
I see a lot of students discussion time and still be each other. And that's still not feel like they're going to be answering each other. The teacher's really going to be interjecting.
Let's take about one more minute for each person to share their vision.
Not all the same voices. I want to hear the same students. Lightly challenge each other with
and then I guess a little more like I think we're talking about I really because that's like the spectacular. There's a
both of them are taking part from and I'm in Joe. Actually, you're on the edge. I oversee their office. Here's the power review there. But then I want to do when that's override because if they put in an answer that the computer doesn't accept, I do all that for them, but I don't monitor anybody else. I feel like if you're not like that's
And intentional spaces. So that is something else I saw. Really knows that stuff. That's telling you very specifically that the lots of room when you're going to do that. You're going to there's like dog there's like we get a real intentional spaces because so now the added schools now
I don't know that.
Okay, we're going to come together in 5, 4, A. Thank you. So hopefully each person had a chance to share their vision of the ideal classroom, both from the lens of the facilitator and the estudiante. What I would like us to do next is, within your group, you've all had an opportunity to share. I want us to kind of come up with sort of like a mission statement for what that might look and sound like. So you each have your own ideas. How can you combine those ideas into sort of a mission statement of this is what we believe in as an ideal classroom environment? So we may not all get everything we listed as part of that mission statement, but there should be an opportunity for each of our voices to be heard in some way through that statement. So what I would ask for you to do is select one volunteer at your table to use their blue piece of paper to be able to kind of jot this down. And maybe if you need the sentence stem to begin, we believe that the ideal classroom environment, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. However you want to word that, I leave that up to you. But it should definitely honor the voices of each person in your group. Your guys' group is small, so you might get a chance to honor more of that. We'll see. Can I clarify anything with those instructions? Okay, please select your volunteer, and we will begin by trying to formulate this mission statement of our vision.
Clarifying questions for us, like our role.
Good, so students are really
that conversation and physically engaged in that.
Teachers providing learning. Hopefully for happens.
Was that an issue?
No, I just don't.
You don't want them facilitate way and question with or by. Facilitated.
I respect that, but I do that. I mean, not that, never. I just did that.
We ended up observing elementary teachers No, if we can just draw an answer sheet or something like that. But it's like, my thought was though, like, when it's presenting, the dialogue and discussion.
Self-reflect to gain knowledge.
The feedback is important, so that's what guidance is.
Right.
To give feedback that
Constructive.
Listen to your respond to where you're at. Listen to she respect you. What are you trying? It does need to be
Authenticity is, this morning we did the round table. Get everybody's attention. It's really good. They're open to letting it's not valuable to have.
Check out Untitled Chapter.
I feel like
They're there every single day. It's great.
No, I don't think it's feedback. I don't think it's feedback.
But you have to do like, I think
Different platforms for all stuff about like
I'm writing in pencil.
we have 3 minutes.
Ish.
And inform instruction. Yeah, so instead of games. Yeah, that was your word. Did you notice, by the way, did you notice respect?
Was that purposeful? Was that a purposeful decision?
yeah, that's what she needs it.
You don't like mathematics? Change it. And then for above that, take another, this is the extra front end.
And the funny thing about that is my husband.
You guys are all set, right?
We are all set.
So Carolyn, what do you teach at CTA? What do you teach at CTA?
I'm all the high school math. I replaced Turkstra after she retired.
Oh, that's right. Now I know where I placed your name at. Okay.
Yeah. So this is year 4.
So you took over all the kiddies from her. Gotcha. Are you still in the same room at the end of the hall there?
Yeah.
And you taught with Rusty at the high school.
At Ken Innovation High, yeah. Yeah. Yep.
We have 4 kids in that program now.
Dawson Ingersoll for sure is still over there. Yeah.
Yep. And then 2 freshmen. 3. I lied. We have 5 kids now.
Yeah, I know.
Freshman and 1 sophomore.
One's on the cross country team, but I can't picture his name right now. Yeah.
Well, he was cross country. He's in soccer this year.
Soccer's going to kill the cross country team, I'm afraid.
Yeah. The
Too small of a school to have 2 sports the same season.
He lost.
Yeah, Todd.
Yeah, Todd lost like 3 quarters to that, I think.
I would have fought Dan against that if I had been there still. So,
We had
especially having started the cross country team.
we had a lot of parents for it last year. A lot of parents are interested in starting a soccer team. A parent who was moving to coach, and a lot of other small that we play that have soccer teams like Wellspring, aviation, and all that. So it's
Right.
kind of
Similar with basketball, some of the same
yeah,
teams.
it's the
Yeah.
same kind of. It was difficult in that sense, but it was a good fit. The cross country teams don't really have to be a certain size.
Well, you need to have at least 5 to have a score, and he doesn't have that unless they run the conference meets when they let him run the middle schoolers with it.
Yeah, he's got Dawson, Jordan.
Because I know Bryn isn't running this year.
No, they moved. He only allowed one sport. I guess probably
Aren't they up in Big Rapids? I think they're up in Big Rapids. Oh, did they? 5, 4, 27, 64, 3, 2, A. If you need more time, I would like to see a show of fingers of how many more minutes you need, but be careful which finger you use, please. Is there anybody that needs more time? Thank you. So our next task then is, so you've created a kind of a vision within your groups of what that ideal classroom might look and sound like. So now what we need to do is start to merge that with some of the other groups in the room and see if we can start to create a more common vision amongst our entire group. So what I'm going to ask to have happen, since this group's really small over here, I'm going to have these groups this way. You'll have access to that whiteboard right there. And you're going to try to find a way to combine all 4 of your mission statements in a way that honors all 4 groups. And I bet you guys can't guess your instructions. But you may choose either one of those 2 boards. Probably that one has a little more space next to it. And do the same thing with your 3 groups, trying to honor the vision and mission of each of your groups. Are there any preguntas or questions about that?
Are we going to be over there for like the rest of the time? Or are we
Just for a little while, yeah. You may begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
It goes so fast.
Yeah, did you try to turn it down?
No, I didn't realize I could.
So right over there by the wall, you should be able to.
Can I put it like Arctic conditions? Okay.
Anything else?
I'm good. Griffin came down, fixed it or not. I think I'm good.
I'll check back in once it gets closer to implementation and survey time. But
Yeah. I got that in the agenda or in the slide deck, so it should be good to not forget to do that. Okay, thanks.
It sounds like we got a lot of overlap, but this should be easy to receive. So, ideal classroom environment. Our vision of a collaborative learning environment is student-led, respectful discussion, safe environment for us to struggle, facilitator role, questions and meaningful tasks, and then lastly, all students are engaged in the learning process.
It says ideal classroom should be student-centered, so safe. Both have those. Students work collaboratively, communicate, and have
environment should be a welcoming physical space created by the facilitator where students feel safe to participate, discuss ideas, and
We believe a collaborative
self-reflect.
classroom consists of engaged students having on-task mathematical discourse facilitated by purposeful questioning and intentional monitoring to provide feedback and informed instruction.
We said we believe a collaborative learning environment is
I like that you have
safe between teachers and
safe
for everyone.
I like being thinking about what the tasks should be like. What was that? Meaningful tasks.
So can we
Lead
some of these
authentic, active dialogue and or discussion where students are engaged physically, mentally, and vocally.
Safe collaborative classroom consists of engaged students having purposeful on task.
what did we mean on that?
Having on-task mathematical discourse around meaningful tasks. That's a lot. Can we use that word?
We're actually in a minute. We're going to combine everything into one. So
Facilitated by purposeful questioning and
I love your thinking and initiative.
in order to provide feedback and information.
So instead of saying on task, we say on point or something like that.
It's something that was big for hers, because that's the idea you're often
Can we just reverse that back on instead of on?
So I don't know if maybe that's.
Well, maybe purposeful already there. I feel like on point means, like when you said something to hit the nail on the head. Where you don't, you know,
Physical, productive mathematical discourse to be able to.
You're not inefficient, you would be talking about productive mathematical discourse around
Yeah.
facilitated by purposeful questioning. So a functional space is really right after the purposeful question. I know, I wonder if it's in order to provide.
Authentic, like,
Facilitated by
Naturally occurring.
Yeah, in order to provide feedback and further instruction.
Describe.
Read it from the beginning.
Yeah.
I think we don't have to. Okay.
You can punctuate it.
Holy crap. Okay, here's what we have.
Those were things that seem to come from. Right. And the instructor should be welcoming, feels like it should feel safe. You punctuate your clarity and guidance. The one thing to say is
No eye contact and moving away from the place where we were.
We saw that. First person that took a step away.
So if I share this with somebody,
Try to share it on the
You guys are set just on there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we begin right up there. Do you want us to, or do we have
Don't need to if you got there.
You can add.
Actually, it might be good because so they can just more easily see when we get to the next part. So yeah, so they can transfer up there. Looks like they're on it.
There, I just shared it with you. So am I supposed to share this? Yeah.
So what I'd like you to do is write on the board still so that they can see it too. Yep.
Okay, then we are ready now. Sarah, you are ready.
Active discussion and collaboration. For solving a problem.
Okay, Karen.
Using the word authentic.
Environment or
Authentic and
classroom.
Discussion and collaboration.
Productive.
Towards the end of summer.
Or kind of like discussion, collaboration.
Like just kind of like Google.
Collaboration.
Skills and like
Discussion, collaboration.
So how?
Working, or just working towards a common goal, whether it's problem solving or.
Oops.
It wasn't.
Is engaging all students and participating, is that duplication of, or is that, do you feel like there's separate statements? Engaging all, where all students are engaged, that kind of idea?
You can be engaged and not be participating, I don't know.
Well, but can you be engaged in authentic discussion and not be participating? Can you be engaged in authentic discussion and collaboration and not be participating? Because that that engagement of students is for that piece. So I guess I'm wondering, like,
So safe space that allows all students to participate in authentic discussion and collaboration and working towards a common goal.
as soon as we say allows, I feel like it gives students the opt out, so it's not like an ideal.
Enables.
How about safe space where students are engaged, collaborating, safe space where, because the space doesn't engage students, so safe space where students actively participate, authentically participate, discuss, collaborate, probably.
I feel like we just need to
Say again?
Is that like a lottery?
So it's based on school enrollment. So every public school district in Kent County, all 20, based on their size, gets a certain amount of slots to go there. And then same with the charters and parochial schools too. And if those slots aren't filled, then it becomes an open enrollment piece. So some schools will have more that want to attend than actually can go. So then it will open up to that waiting list then after that. So what was unique about my experience was I got to teach students from all 20 districts in Kent County at the same time.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see like your Sparta students collaborating with your Godwin Heights students, your Kentwood students working with your Cedar Springs students. So it was a really cool environment. They all came from different backgrounds and had different amounts of prior knowledge, which was often challenging too to teach, but especially in math and physics. But it was awesome to watch that community come together.
Right. Yeah, I actually came and saw you in Rusty. It was years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, you and Rusty were in the same room, I think.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, we had the big studio floor there. Yeah, Marcus at the time was standalone doing geometry. And Rusty and I were together, and then Rusty moved up here. And I actually lied. Actually, there was another teacher between Rusty and Marcus, but he ended up getting promoted to be the design lab teacher at KCTC. So Rusty got promoted, Joe Phillips got promoted, and then Marcus got promoted. So I kept starting to think I was just scaring him away. So that was quite a few years, probably about 5 years ago then. Great. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 205, square root of 1 time. Thank you for your efforts in doing this so far. So it looks like over here, this group, which was these fantastic groups, definitely by far a great group, because I see at least one Spartan shirt in the group. We believe a safe, collaborative classroom consists of engaged students having productive mathematical discourse around meaningful tasks. This is facilitated by purposeful questioning and intentional monitoring in order to provide feedback to inform future instruction. And I will try to move this out of the way to make sure you guys can see it without blocking the swivel. You're welcome. So that is that group on that side of the room's vision at this point in time. Over here, the other 4 groups. I'm just going to add a we believe in the front of that, I think. We believe in a safe space where students actively participate in authentic discussion and collaboration, working towards a common goal. Awesome. I like both of them. And I have a feeling I'm not the only one that likes both of them. So, next job for you 3 groups, come over here and underline a couple things you really like about theirs. These groups go over there, underline a couple things you really like about theirs. Try to use a different color marker than what they wrote in, please. We'll take 2 minutes. Go. Fremont, huh?
Yes.
What brought you down this way?
We were sent here. Actually, we had 2 teachers last year that participated in this, and they really enjoyed it. So then 2 more got to go. So me and another teacher came down.
Okay. I remember, was it high school or?
We're at the middle school.
So my parents have a place in Hesperia.
Okay.
So we often, and I live in Ravenna, so I have to travel through Fremont to get up, because they're up off a 6 mile up there. So, in fact, I just drove
You're
through.
originally from Ravenna?
From Grand Haven, actually.
Oh, okay.
I moved to Ravenna when I taught in Cedar Springs and worked at in West Olive for my summer job.
Okay.
I was a park ranger
So
for a while.
the difference there.
Yeah, so that's why I ended up in Ravenna, but
Yeah, Ravenna's nice.
good job for shortening the drive a little bit. So, yeah. Fremont's more exciting than Ravenna, though.
Oh,
Do you live in Fremont?
yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit more.
Cool.
We didn't enjoy that.
I know, right? It's tempting, right?
We enjoy no traffic. This morning was so sorry.
Oh.
When you get on 96, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
here's traffic.
My biggest problem was they had 96 closed westbound there by Plainfield and Alpine. So I'm thankful that's opened up now, because my 35-minute drive in was an hour 5 to get home. Yeah. Especially if I didn't get out of here by 4 or so. All right, we will come back together now at this time. So, things I see over here that the other group really likes are safe and collaborative, last minute addition, engaged students, productive, meaningful tasks, purposeful questioning, intentional monitoring, and provide feedback. Over here we got safe space, actively authentic discussion, and common good. Goal. Sorry. Do I have, or can I find somebody to help me for a minute here? I need a personal volunteer to help me out here. And it just involves writing on the board. It's actually the easiest job because you don't have to do the thinking. Thank you. Could you write on that board? I will tell you what you will need to write. We'll help you figure this out. So what we're going to do now, if you haven't figured it out, is we need to try to combine both visions. We need a community vision of what this ideal classroom would look like, honoring as much of our voice from everyone as possible. So we've kind of got what half the room thinks over here this ideal classroom will look like this year for our 5 sessions. This group over here, same thing. So I don't want it to be my vision, though. Like I said, I want this to be us, not you and me. And I don't want to be dictating what we're going to try to set up in here. So I'm just going to try to, as best I can, facilitate this so that we feel like both of these mission statements are being honored, and my volunteer is going to help write that out on the board for me. Okay? So how would you like to start the statement?
I think both groups had safe on there.
Okay? So would it be safe to say, pun intended, that as a community, we believe that... Okay, so let's start with that. As a community, we believe that how would you like to fit in safe now from here?
Well, it seems like we either have to go back and take out that, or we have to say, like, we believe that the classroom should be a safe.
Okay.
Or we can go back and take out that and say, we believe in a safe.
Is that what you'd rather do? Okay. So let's backtrack and say, how did you word that again?
We believe in a safe.
So we're going to kind of start from scratch there. Sorry about that.
No, that's right. And the community.
Oh, okay.
In a safe.
Perfect.
Collaborative learning environment.
Learning environment?
Or a safe collaborative classroom.
Where engaged students participate actively? Or actively participate?
Are we okay with, I was just kind of writing, are we okay with the parentheses?
participate
and have productive,
in productive mathematical discourse.
Actively
Tasks.
participate in the discourse.
In discourse to solve meaningful tasks.
What about productive? Should we throw that in there? Participate in productive discourse?
Do we need productive discourse and authentic discussions? The same thing. We just had it underlined in both, so I didn't know if it's the same. I thought
Productive,
Oh, sorry. Are you right?
You're doing great.
No, so it'd be productive, comma, authentic discourse. So those two words that I need to research.
Finish it off with solving tasks. And then polish it off. That's the common goal, meaningful task. Would we be missing anything?
we talked a little bit more about the facilitator, but.
So you would value some sort of mentioning of facilitation in some way?
Is that a necessity? I'm just wondering if our classrooms function without us, would we be okay with it?
Could this include the facilitator without saying the word facilitator?
Yeah. Could be like teachers that serve better. I mean, you could also come in and kind of say something about like need, create, or provide. So there's something that applies here. Where you feel like facilitation or facilitating.
Could we say as a community of facilitators and students?
Could it be where engaged members actively participate? Because then you're referring to everybody in the room?
I think if we go back to the role of you're the students and I'm a facilitator, I kind of like how that includes everybody without having a single one group out.
So collaborative learning environment where engaged members actively participate. So every single person in the room, facilitator, student, whoever it is, everybody is part of the engaged community.
I like that. I'm just wondering if that insinuates that we as the member are working towards solving the problem as well.
What if it was,
Not that I.
right, what if instead of to solve, it was the around, because there's different aspects of the meaningful task, so one member might do the facilitating around that task, and one person might do the solving.
Would you be okay if one student was doing facilitating and one student was doing solving?
And then the student, but sometimes yes.
As long as it wasn't the same every time.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have many tasks, and as long as they're taking turns facilitating or solving, I could see that there's benefit.
So I guess a question I would throw out is, does this mission statement as it stands right now leave a loophole for a student to kind of skate through without participating?
I think the word engaged, because you want all members, so I think you could get rid of that word engaged. Because that means, what about the kids who aren't engaged? Like, you want all members. Or just even take engaged out and just put where members actively participate.
For all members.
There's no loophole with adding all.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. That would also then include the facilitator as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that's missing that we feel like really should be incorporated in some fashion?
I feel like there's still might need to be something about like create or provide up here, because like we believe that it exists, or we believe that faith
So you value that it doesn't just magically appear, that it actually takes work.
Creating or providing.
Building.
You like that?
All the English teachers in the room just spoke up. I know, right? Anything else that we would want to include, and or is that how we also would like to end the mission statement?
What about the questioning, like supportable questioning and feedback?
Are you questioning and feedback and monitoring, like all of those things that are the roles that are, well, the facilitator, but there's students should be questioning each other and monitoring.
Right. And students give feedback to each other as they're going through a discussion.
So questioning, monitoring, and feedback in some fashion should be honored in our mission statement.
After authentic discourse, because it's part of the discourse. In productive authentic discourse, parentheses, including questioning, monitoring, and providing feedback.
But if you're saying it's part of the discourse, because you just said it's part of the discourse, is it already included in the discourse?
If I'm a student and I'm wondering what are those expectations of me being involved in this discourse, what am I supposed to be doing, I would find that valuable. You should be questioning, you should be monitoring, you should be providing feedback to your classmates. That is the goal.
So could we honor? Maybe I'm missing the mark here, but maybe it's another sentence that says our vision of productive, authentic discourse includes. Would that honor what you're saying?
I was just going to ask if the mission statement had to include like a working definition for everything. You know what I mean? Like just like when I do the common mathematical practices as statements, that's not a necessarily working definition for all the students. You know, which is why I have bullet points underneath them that spell out what they might look like.
Sure.
But my bullet points there aren't the mathematical practice itself. So I guess I'm just wondering. I'm not.
No, that's fair.
One or the other.
I get what
is
you're
this
saying.
actually including exactly what it looks like, defining everything specifically, or not?
Personally, and it's not my decision alone, but I think that it's important that it's a working definition, that it's something that we all, when we read that mission statement, we still create that same image of what that looks and sounds like. So for me, I would want details to know what everyone's vision of that is. So personally, yes, I would include that in some way.
Is it something that we are using for ourselves, or something that you would intend to share, like with students to use in the classroom?
So this is for all of us to use for all 5 sessions as we move through here. And I know we're kind of taking the role of being in a classroom, but this is something that we would all use and honor.
So then that really is, like, that part's the mission statement, and the other things are the vision. So I view those as together, but 2 separate things. Like he's saying, those are the bullet points. The bullet point is the vision, and that's what this looks like. The mission statement is, here's the thing, and the vision is, here's what that might look like.
So I guess that's where I'm getting it. Maybe we just add another sentence at the end. We just say, we kind of clarify that a little bit. So if we said, our ideal classroom, no, I don't want to say it that way. Let's say, to solve, all members actively participate in productive, authentic discourse around meaningful tasks by engaging in questioning and monitoring and providing feedback. Would that be okay?
What was that again?
By engaging in questioning and providing and monitoring feedback. Because then it's also included, it's not just me as the facilitator providing and monitoring feedback, it's everyone in this room is kind of held to that standard.
I guess I'm wondering, as soon as we say by engaging in, are we saying that those are the only things that are incorporating inauthentic discourse, or because if so, there's nothing about proposing solution methods,
Sure.
sharing ideas. It's just questioning.
We could maybe change that to which include, which may include.
But not limited to.
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember, like, the goal of the mission statement is for all the people in your organization to be able to know it at the drop of a hat. And so the longer we make it, the more difficult it is to make it an authentic living piece. So, although I genuinely agree with all of the things that are popping up here, I think it's super important to know that it should be something concise, that it can be this, 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 boom. Because if everyone in the organization can't recite it, it's absolutely meaningless to that person who can't recite it. And I'll be super honest, I agree with all these things, I won't memorize it. Blunt, sorry, but super honest, right? Anyone else there?
I agree. I think that, like, mission statements are shorter, so it kind of tells you what we believe, but not how we achieve them. And I feel like conversations we have, and throughout these 5 sessions, we're going to talk about how that looks, but we're not going to tell everyone how that, like, we're going to understand it from a concise statement, but it doesn't have to include every action that we plan to take.
I think right now we're trying to put the what, the why, and the how all in one thing. And I think rather we might want to look at what's the what. Get the what, and then the rest of our time is deciding why that is with a vision or how that is with a plan.
So we go back to the stopping after meaningful tasks.
Well, if we said we start with that for now, and maybe we reserve the right to consider it again in the future. I love that thing. So we have, as a community, we believe in building a safe, collaborative learning environment where all members actually participate in productive, authentic discourse around meaningful tasks. And I would suspect there's nobody in this room right now who would disagree with that statement, outside of maybe how it's worded, which is fair. So are we all okay with honoring this throughout our 5 times we meet this year? Okay. So what we will do at some point here is we will need to make sure this is posted visibly every time we meet, so that we can all refer back to this and hold ourselves accountable to what we envision as being this ideal classroom environment. Has anyone ever done this in some fashion or not with their students before? Just kind of show of hands, just so I can kind of get good vision for that. Okay. Maybe not in this procedural way, but in some fashion before. Okay. How many of you are elementary? How many are middle school? How many are high school? So I found from my experience that elementary teachers tend to do this a little bit more, and then it kind of fades off as you go up through. I was a high school teacher for most of my 16 years, including the last 5. My unique position in the last 5 years at Kent Innovation High was I was a teacher for students from all 20 districts in Kent County at the same time. So as I was talking with a couple of my friends earlier, it was unique. I had students from Sparta and Godwin Heights and Kentwood and Cedar Springs together in one classroom at the same time, with all their different backgrounds, all their different experiences, all their different whatevers, and trying to create a safe, collaborative learning space for them, where they all felt honored and comfortable and engaged. And it wasn't easy. I did this with my high school students. This is my day 2 lesson plan. Every year I've done this. And every year it's a battle. It's probably the single most tiring day I have had as a teacher every year, day 2. And even though I'm out of the classroom now this year, I got the opportunity to come back in for the first week of school this year and help set the culture in our classroom. Partly because my co-teacher went on his honeymoon the first week of school, and they hired a new physics teacher, and they didn't want to throw her to the sharks by herself. So I had an opportunity one more time this year to do this again with students from all 20 districts and charter schools, in the same class at the same time. And high school students, their high school teachers often think this is an elementary or lower grade thing. It was very important for me to do this to make sure we had a clear vision of what we expected as we went through the whole year. And I have actually 2 examples I can show you what our students came up with. Now, they did not get into the discussion about what a mission statement actually looks like, right? For them, they just wanted to make sure that they had their voice honored in some way, in some fashion. I would do the same thing with my students where I start out with, what's this vision of the ideal classroom environment to you? And you always had to preface it with, and I don't mean this where you get to do whatever you want and joke around and throw things around the room. And I would say, you all know deep in your hearts what a truly good, ideal classroom environment would look like. How would you see that? And then I would break them into their groups, and then we would go half the classroom. Now, I know everyone's classroom is different. I had a lot of space in my room where I could split my class in half. But I also recognized I had an integrated classroom with 40 students in it. So I had a lot of kids. And so I'd have 20 over here, 20 over here. And then the hardest part was trying to combine all that like we just did here and to make sure that voice was heard. So it was a lot of doing this kind of back and forth, whatnot. And I had also 2-hour sessions. I know not everybody has that. But it was worth the time. And we would take probably an hour and a half of my second day of school to do this in each of my classes. It was totally worth it because this is how we lived our classroom every day for the rest of the year. Now, I don't have this year's, but I have a couple years ago. And this was, so we're part of KCTC, so we kind of go on the first session, second session, third session thing. My first session group, they came up with, we as a community will strive to encourage each other to achieve a positive professional workspace. Together with curiosity, communication, and collaboration, we will exercise patience to accomplish our goals. We will respect each other as a family in a fun and judgment-free zone. So again, lots of words, maybe not what you would define as an actual mission statement. They definitely couldn't memorize that necessarily, but they all remembered parts of it. And we would talk about, okay, that's great to say, but it's actually really hard to do. And we all have our good days and we all have our bad days. I have days where even as a facilitator, I would be really good at honoring that mission statement. And then I'd have my days where we had a cross-country meet that went until 9 p.m. and I'd come in the next morning and maybe I was lacking a little of the exercising patience part. Especially when I worked with wrestling. Yes. But I would actually have students kind of call me out on that. Like, Mr. Verwey, how you feeling today? Are you feeling patient? Like, busted. So we would live this out, but then because we were in a collaborative environment, we worked in groups all the time, we would consistently remind ourselves of what the class mission statement was. So the key is, this isn't just something we did on the second day, this is something we revisited all year long. And maybe I didn't say it every day, but at least a couple times a week, before we'd start anything, I'd say, hey, let's remember what our class mission statement is, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. I think it's especially important today for today's activity that we focus on judgment-free zone. The judgment-free zone was always popular with my kids because they came from groups with different backgrounds. So that was my first session. This is actually some of our students that are trying to figure out the mission statement. So this is where the class was split in half. I tried to very intentionally stay out of it. I sit back just silently and watch. And it does a couple things for me. I figure out who my leaders are right away because it gets so awkward, somebody finally steps up. Then I also know who I have to be careful to not let control the class all the time too. So I can watch to see who do I need to help focus on making sure that they honor this mission statement. You know, those people we talk about kind of falling through the loop. So there's always going to be the couple kids that are kind of sitting off to the side that don't really want to engage. Now, on the second day of school, I have a clear idea of who I need to kind of make sure to help monitor and mentor through this mission statement. Yeah, that's Dawson right there. Yeah. This was the other half of the class doing the same thing. I had them do it on whiteboards at first, small whiteboards, and then come together as a group. And keep in mind, too, this was our first session started at 6:55 a.m. which is a high schooler's favorite time of the day. So this is we probably started this honestly around 7:20. This part of the day was probably 8 o'clock-ish. So we've been working hard for 40 minutes at least at this point trying to come up with a mission statement. My second session class was a little more awake, so they created an imaginary word for Physics Algebra 2. We as a Phelgebra 2 community, they're very, very proud of that word, agree that judgment is not tolerated. We as a family must enact responsibility, which in turn leads to respectful actions through and thorough effort. These combined values embodied the ideals of KIH. So not only was it, this is the vision of our class, this group said this is the way it should be our whole school. And they would often carry that back to their other class as well. But again, you see some similarities there with the other one, especially the judgment part. The students are very conscientious of feeling judged. And you guys have recognized that too in your mission statement. Our mission statement. Safe was an important word for both groups. It needs to feel safe in some way. And it may not be there right away, but this mission statement helps us to remind ourselves that this is an important vision from everyone in the room. And there's other things we can talk about this year too that help ensure that safe feeling. But this mission statement's big because I can say, hey, remember, you guys valued this. This was important. The second day of school we talked about you wanted this to be a safe environment and judgment-free. That's not me asking you to do that. That's us asking you to do that. So we need to make sure we're kind of checking ourselves and reflecting on how well are we doing that. So I mentioned I coach cross-country and track. Anyone else here coach sports at all? You guys or girls set goals at all? My kids, they set goals. So I coach a university here in town. And they set goals, and they want to hit times. We're in cross-country right now. So I have one girl, she wants to run a 1950 5K, which is really fast, right? I wonder if I can run a 1950 5K anymore. Thank you. I'm just looking for the compliment. And I say, that's great. So what are you going to do that? Well, I need to make sure at practice I'm pushing myself. I'm breaking through the mental walls. I'm eating right. I'm drinking well. Cool. How much do you have to drink today? 1 cup of water. Yeah, well, that's not going to help you, right? And then I say, so you have a great opportunity today in today's race to run well. Why didn't you hit it? Well, it was hard. I was tired. I was cramping. I was hurting. I was dehydrated. Whatever the excuse was. And so we had a talk after our first meet this year, which was at U of M Dearborn. I don't know why I went to U of M school. And we did really bad. And I said to them, well, you know why we went all the way to U of M Dearborn today? It's so we could make our mistakes where nobody could see us. We don't know anybody on the east side of the state. And I said, but didn't you have goals and you said you were going to get them? And they're like, yeah. I said, sacrifice is easy to say, but it's hard to do. This is easy to say, but it's hard to do too. It looks like it'd be easy to do, but you're all educators, you know, with your kids. It's hard to do. So consistency is really important here. It's one thing that they say it, we need to help practice that and model that with them so that they can be able to do that throughout the year. It was interesting this morning, sitting in on the morning session and looking at the framework that you guys were presented with. And I was thinking about this idea. Remember earlier on I said I don't want this to be you and me, I want it to be us? I'm curious how that idea of us is different than you and me as far as establishing a culture in your classroom. I'd like you to take 60 seconds and reflect on that to yourself, please. If you need to jot something down on your blue paper, you may. Now I'd ask you to find an eye contact partner and to share with each other how you think you and me versus us would make a difference in your classroom. Way to go, break the rules. I didn't explain. No, you're good.
I posted in the classroom for you.
I typed that. I was going to put it in our
Perfect.
classroom.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. You saved me a step there. Very, very much.
Let that work. I didn't want
Large ones, especially when you go larger, like out of
One thing I like is like a great sock, so like send one member from your group for example. Or like say you make a group and like have one moving member and then you guys say and then I go to the table. This is what I got, what did you guys say? And then I bring back, here's what the other guy. So that's more engaging. I forgot about this. There was one time new ways to do
Fifth grade.
Try new technique. Thank you. I want to call back on a conversation this morning about the difference between professional development and professional learning. And I'm curious, I sat with some people and talked with some people this morning, but I'm curious, what were some of the key thoughts that came out with the professional learning piece? Like if I was to ask you, what does that look and sound like or feel like? Professional learning, what might you say to that? And I'll just open the floor to anyone. Right.
Well, you're actively involved. You are engaged. You do deep learning activities.
Sure.
It's something that you have a lot of buy-in to.
Sure. Is it comfortable?
Not at all times. So, I mean, it can be very uncomfortable at a point.
Sure.
If you want to give you buy-in to change,
right,
if it need be.
I agree. I think there was some discussion that we had in the morning session about being kind of pushed out of our comfort zone to really grow and whatnot. And so with that in mind, and the idea that you guys as a class want this to be a collaborative learning environment, it's very interesting how many of you stayed in your group and didn't get up and move around to other groups. So we talked about it's easy to say but hard to do. There's just a tiny, maybe not the best example, but it's an example of how it's easy to say these things, but it's not necessarily easy to go ahead and do that. And a couple of you did, and that's fine. And I didn't ask you to, but it was kind of a little form of assessment for me to see what would happen in that moment. So there's that. I'm looking for 3 victims to share how they feel you and me is different than us. And I'll just take those. There's 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
I said you and me separate the 2 groups, whether it's 2 groups of students or teacher versus student. And then us means you're all working together.
Thank you.
Kind of build off of that. We said you and me implies individuality, where us implies a shared responsibility.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, I said the same thing. It felt like it was separated, the you and me separated, and the us is us together.
Absolutely.
And almost like the you and me then gives us different roles.
Right.
It implies that we have different roles, whereas the us kind of puts us all on the same footing.
Do you think the students value that more? I feel like I baited the question by asking with more at the end of there, but do you think the students value that? I personally think they do. I think that they appreciate it when they see you get down into the trenches with them. And that's what I want to do here too. I don't want to stand up here and say, I know how to manage your classroom. I know how to create, I have all the answers and the only answers to creating a collaborative learning environment. Who makes me the expert other than Rusty asked me to be here today, right? I know I've got experience from all of you in this room. I'm not the only teacher in here. I can share my experiences, and they've been productive and they've worked for me, but I know there's more than just me. So I want this to be us, but it's important for your students to know it's us too, particularly in math. I wasn't a math teacher by trade. I moonlighted as a math teacher by integrating my class with Algebra 2. So I got to play math teacher is what I told my kids. But I know that they really valued to see that I was down on the floor with them, working through problems and helping them struggle. Not giving them the answers, but I was there to struggle with them. So second day of school was this. First day of school, if I back up, I had all the requirements. I had to go through the handbook and everything too. First day of school, we did the kind of get to know each other type stuff. Well, whenever I went through my classroom expectations, is make sure you sign out before you go to the bathroom. The things I need to do. I always talked about, I don't want this to be you and me. I want this to be us. This isn't a game to me. It's not a game where you're trying to trick me and I'm trying to trick you. We're in this together. And I would go on and on and on. And I usually did a better job articulating it than I am right now. And for a while, I didn't know if that actually made a difference until one year, I always made sure the students knew when my birthday was because let's just face it, I like gifts. So I always said, make sure you have December 18th marked on your calendar. It's a very important day. It's my birthday. And I like food, and I was hoping they'd bring me food, and they did. And they got a cake, and they surprised me and all that. And I kind of knew it was coming, but what I didn't know was coming was the giant card they made. And guess what was on the front of the card? It's not you and me. It's us. And I'm tearing up right now just thinking about that. And this was, my high school kids from all 20 districts in Kent County, 20 plus districts in Kent County that did that.
They're painting the hallway.
Yeah, they just tore down the wallpaper yesterday. Yeah. So this is powerful, and it does resonate with your kiddos as far as establishing that culture in your classroom. Last thing, before we start getting into some of this reflection things that Rusty wants me to do, I thought was very interesting in that goldenrod, I like how you said goldenrod packet. The part, I don't remember where it was, it talked about environment with a capital E. I really fixated on that a lot. So maybe next time we meet, I want to focus on that a little bit more too. So I'm going to have to kind of partake or move past some of what I want to cover today. How many of you use the norms of collaboration in your classroom? Mm-hmm. So I always partner this with my class mission statement. So we can talk about that next time as well. We need to get into our Google Classroom account if you have not yet done so. I did add the breakout session code at the bottom there. It is also in your agenda, but in case you didn't have that handy, it's there. Get my mouse to work. And I believe your implementation guide should be in there. Actually, here's what I'll do. Freeze this screen. Looks like Marcus had posted the implementation guide in there. And they want you to reflect on those first two parts, I believe, which was just, first of all, the session title, which, if you're not sure what that is, it's right there. Creating a collaborative learning environment, or the other two boards, top left in the blue. That's the session name. And then I believe they wanted you to complete the commitment section. That's what Rusty said this morning.
Yes.
And then I think they're letting you off the hook after that. First day.
And then we and I already typed the demonstration in the overall. Are we supposed to put our mission statement?
No, I think, what was your, just says commitment.
Based on student need.
So,
Isn't that essentially what we just did?
we covered that. Yeah, I guess it doesn't have to be just your mission statement, though, right?
Right.
So mission statement is one piece of maybe what this session might evolve into. Yeah, what are you committing to doing in your classroom?
Right.
And it might be,
I mean, ultimately, that's the ultimate goal if I chose this class would be to.
it might be, but there's other things we'll talk about this year other than the class mission statement, so it might not need to be something specific.
I'm talking about community, what we said up
Oh,
there.
gotcha. Yeah, that would be your commitment. Yeah. You're committing to creating a similar type environment. Yes, gotcha.
So you're filling out a commitment based on
Doing that commitment right now.
you're in, they're in.
They are in.
It's working.
Of course it is. Why wouldn't it be?
Can you imagine?
Turn the temp down to 59 and I'm still sweating.
Yeah. Feels better after being out and walking back in. It's hot.
It's interesting. So maybe it wasn't the best example of this, but they came up with that mission statement and they said, okay, so this is how we envision this, our 5 sessions going this year. This is what you guys believe in. We talked about this is easy to say but hard to do. So then I gave them an opportunity to find an eye contact partner and reflect on this difference between you and me versus us. It's okay, find your eye, and I left it very vague. Find your eye contact partner and go share. And almost all of them just stayed at their table, and like 4 got up and moved.
Here's the sign-in sheet.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, have a good day.
You-
See you next time. And I said, it's interesting.
Did the survey work for you?
The survey.
It's on the left.
I'm not there yet. No, I haven't got there yet. Yeah. So, at any rate,
Sorry,
I called them out on they wanted to create a collaborative environment, but they weren't willing to get up out of their seats. So we talked about that. Going back to when you talk about professional learning, it's pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. It's like, oh yeah.
Oh, that's what we talked about.
I do. It's almost too easy. I did very little of the work today, which is good.
Yeah, that's the key. That's the key. Are you missing KIH right now?
Not at all. No, I mean, I value the experiences from there to use in this setting very much. But I don't find myself missing it. Maybe I miss some of the structure, believe it or not.
Yeah. Right?
So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We still have a couple things we need to take care of for Rusty and Marcus, which include some reflection piece. So I've moved on to the next slide. Oops, except I didn't unfreeze this screen here. And they said they want you to take 1 minute to reflect around 2 focus questions. And I know we haven't really dug into a lot of like tasks yet for this session, but you have a basic gist for where we're going to be going. So you're reflecting on what might be some things that are vital to communicate back to your building mathematics team, and what might be an avenue to communicate important learning back to your school. And that might change over the course of our 5 sessions. We're still just very, 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 very surface right now. But I'd like you to reflect on that for 1 minute. and then share that out in your table group. So let's take about 90 seconds to do that. At this time, I would start sharing within your table group what might be some things that are vital to communicate back to your mathematics team as well as to your school. We'll take 1 minute to do that.
I'm the math department, so I've already done it in.
Or do we just communicate it with myself?
Put more stuff in. I can do whatever
Yeah,
I
you're going to be using it throughout the year.
So we don't click turn in, it's just a shared document with somebody?
We'll have to ask Rusty that. It's a good question.
If you turn it in, you can always unsubmit it, so you can type on it again.
So you probably don't have to turn it in yet. I would say don't turn it in yet, but I can't find Rusty. He disappeared. So please try to finish up your conversations in the next 15 seconds. And you have a productive conversation in your mind, I'm sure.
I am. It's great.
That's right. I hope you're listening to yourself.
It is great. I mean, it's phenomenal conversation.
No one's disagreeing, right?
Right.
That's the important part. I love the Grand Valley shirt, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I'm actually a
I
Grand
noticed
Valley
that you're an alum. I saw that you had a flag. I was like,
Yep.
I have a flag in my room too.
Yep. In fact, I had that at my high school graduation open house, that very flag. So.
How about you?
Oh, Christy and I will be gone from the next session. We have conferences. We'll be here in the morning, but not the afternoon.
Okay, I'll try not to take it personally then.
Right.
Got it.
No, we'll be back.
That's good. I get it. That'd probably be a busy time of year for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Point. So it's tricky to schedule learning opportunities around those conferences when it's
because
different.
Every district's going to have different conferences.
Right.
Testing windows. Tons of stuff.
If only there was a solid schedule for everybody, right? One of the last things we need to take care of. 5, 4, 3, 7, 1. There's a survey, I believe he called it, that he would like us to complete. It's called this progress monitoring. Things to keep in mind. This will provide valuable insight into our progress as a group, and it provides leadership with valuable insights into what they might consider to continue to improve. There's a bit.ly address there at the bottom, bit.ly/MichME D1, I'm assuming for day 1. That Rusty just asked me if we had any problems completing, and I said we haven't got there yet, so he's obviously eager for some feedback. So if you could take a few moments to complete that, it would be appreciated.
It's got to be corrected.
Yeah, it is case sensitive, yes. And this slide deck should be in your Google Classroom site as well. If you can't find it, let me know. I think I put it in there this morning.
Are we turning in some implementation guide?
Don't think you're submitting it yet. And you know, if you do submit it, you can unsubmit it, we heard, so it shouldn't be a big deal if you did. But and I believe, Carolyn, you said you put the mission statement into the Google Classroom site too for us. So thank you.
I did as well.
Perfect. So it's definitely in there. It won't hurt to have it in more than once. And I've also taken a picture of it off the board because I'm more old school. As you're finishing that up, I want to make sure I get you out on time. That's important to me as it is to you. So I'm just going to ask you to be thinking about this reflection question. I don't want to skip over the reflection because I think that's important. We'll pass over the stand and share piece for now, but we still need to reflect. What might I need to stay conscious of in the next month about myself for students to continue to be successful? It may not be that you need to go make a class mission statement now, but there's probably some piece of that you might want to be mindful of. Once you've completed the survey, the progress monitor, and you've reflected internally, then that's all I have. And I'm very, 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 very appreciative of your patience with me today and that you decided to join our wonderful community that believes in a safe, collaborative learning environment where all members actively participate in productive, authentic discourse and meaningful tasks. And have a great day.